I believe people will join us in a few minutes. We have already told them that the session is starting. So let's start. The last session of the day is a panel discussion on roadmap for geospatial standards in action. And to moderate the discussion, we have with us Shri Harshvardhan Madiraju from OGC. Shri Harsha is a global geospatial advocate and a widely networked geospatialist. He has over 18 years of experience in international marketing, business development, and nonprofit management. As the Associate Director, he serves and supports members and communities in India, Africa, and Europe through OGC. So please. So I hand over the session to Harsha sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you to BIS for this opportunity, to OGC for moderating this session. We have 5 panelists in this session. We have Mr. Peter Paslow, Chair of ISO TC 211. I invite him to the stage now. We have Dr. P.S. Acharya, ex-CEO NSDI India. Sir, please join us on the stage. Dr. Sumit Sen, CEO GISC Hub IIT Bombay. Sumit, please join us on the stage. And we have Ms. Mithika Garg, Senior Solutions Engineer, Oracle. Mithika, please. And we also have Jayanta Padar, co-founder and CTO, Garda Analytics. Jayanta, please join me. Thank you. So with this, I would take brief moments to introduce each of the speakers. Peter, most of you know by now because Peter has been interacting with you all from the morning. For the saving of time, I'll skip his profile, and we have now Dr. P.S. Acharya. Again, most of you in the government and the industry know you well, but I take this opportunity to once again briefly introduce sir. Dr. P.S. Acharya has worked as scientist and subsequently as consultant in the Department of Science and Technology, Government of India. And he has led the NSDI program as the Chief Executive Officer from March 2014 to December 2020. He was instrumental in the demonstration of geospatial coordination-based identification of geospatial features using ISO, OGC, and ECMA standards that were used in the National Geospatial Data Registry. The unique identification of 2D parcels and 3D building units subsequently adopted by DOLR, that is the Department of Land Resources, Government of India, and the revenue departments of various state governments countrywide are based on these standards. He was actively involved in the framing of the National Data Sharing and Accessibility Policy 2012 and the National Geospatial Policy 2022. So we are very lucky to have you, sir, over here. And sir was also the former chair of the Geospatial Committee within BIS, LITD 22, which Dr. Datta is now chairing. And the next speaker is Dr. Sumit Sen. Again, Sumit is a well-connected professional in our industry. He's currently serving as the CEO of GISC Hub IIT Bombay. And Sumit is actually a huge advocate of OGC within India and across the globe, and we are very lucky to have him in the community. So Dr. Sumit conducted research on geospatial semantics at Institute of Geoinformatics, Germany, and collaborated with the research groups at Ordnance Survey, UK. He established the research and training group at GIS Development India and assisted in setting the research lab at IIT Bombay, which is the GISC Hub, which is Geospatial Information Science and Engineering Hub. And Sumit is also actually organizing next week a OGC Winter School, which he has been doing from the last 1 year. Again, few of you might be there at the Winter School is what I believe. And again, I want to thank Sumit for this opportunity to OGC to lead the Winter School. The next speaker is Mithika Garg. Ms. Mithika is a geospatial expert with over 14 years of experience in the industry. She has experience in solution architecture, project coordination, software development, and client relation management. And she has experience in sectors such as utilities, public sector, mapping agencies. And she has worked at HCL Technologies and ESRI in her previous roles. And currently she is the Senior Solutions Architect at Oracle. Thank you, Mithika, for joining us on behalf of Oracle, who is also an OGC member and also a member of AGI in India. So AGI has nominated Mithika to join us here from the Indian context. We now have the final panelist, Jayanta. He is the co-founder and CTO of Guradalytics. And Guradalytics, for you who don't know it, it's actually a new tech startup which is developing AI platforms to do geospatial analysis. And through his career, Jayanta demonstrated expertise in managing technical teams, administrating enterprise GIS infrastructure, and delivering innovative solutions. His expertise is beyond the technical realm, and he actually also provides a lot of training sessions and workshops catering to the needs of government, academia, and industrial audiences. We are glad to have a startup again from AGI, a nomination representing us here. So I've had the opportunity to briefly interact with the panelists over the emails and send a few of the questions. So we are going to go into three key topics. One is definitely on the standards roadmap with both international and Indian experiences. Then we would move on to topic 2 on semantic and technical interoperability. And then on topic 3, testing and compliance, which is being seen as a key aspect within the BIS LITD 22 committee. So with this, I would ask Peter to answer a few questions. Peter, if you're comfortable, can you, I know there have been a lot of presentations from the morning, bringing in international experience. Can you, from your own experience of the UK and Europe, a little bit tell to the audience, how does the approach to the roadmap creation for geospatial standards happen actually? How do you approach to creating a roadmap at a national level for developing, adopting standards?
Okay, so yes, I think that does differ from country to country, but there are some things we can draw out in common that we can learn from one another. So, for example, in Europe, the European Union has what they call their rolling plan for ICT standardization. And every few years, the European Union, which has many separate commissions for things like agriculture and transport and so on, they consider what they think they're going to need in terms of standardization in the future. And then they approach the standards bodies to see if where there are gaps, what can they do? So that's the forward-looking parts where they're looking for new standards. But we also engage both OGC and TC211 with the geospatial parts as the European Commission, keeping them up to date with what we're doing, encouraging them in the adoption of standards, which is the other part of the roadmap. It's all right developing standards, but if nobody adopts them, they're not much use. So the European Commission or the European Union is quite, in a sense, quite a top-down structure. It's a bit like having a federal government, although it's officially not a federal government. But it has a tendency to pass directives saying what you should do, and then to agree technical guidelines about how you do it. And the standards come in at the technical guidelines level. So an example at the moment there, they published about 20 years ago some technical guidelines about sharing environmental and geographic data. So those use the old school OGC ISO standards like WMS, WFS, and they develop content models like we're doing here in India, which they based on TC211 standards. So people got used to sharing data that way, and then they've done some more innovative things. So they now have what they're calling a good practice, saying this is how you could do replacing a WFS with a OGC API features for certain circumstances, because at the moment the whole functionality is not there, but for 90% of what they need. So they're being quite logical about saying the directive, the high level aim remains the same, the technical approach for achieving it changes. The problem they're suffering actually is one I think that every country's got to get right is, what's the governance framework? How do you agree when it's the right time to introduce the new things, and later on when it's the right time to dissolve the old things? And if you're a federation of 27 independent countries, that's even harder than if you're a federation of states in one country. So a different example in the UK, we've, I think, taken a lighter approach. My colleague Alan, who you've watched chair the last sessions, he chairs our national committee in the UK. And what we've done and he's taken forward is to come up with a short list. We call it our register of national standards, so of geospatial standards. So they're all international standards, not national ones, where we're saying if you want to share geospatial data, use these standards. Because actually, TC211 publishes, I don't know, 75 standards or something like that, and OGC publishes at least that many. So people often come along and say, well, which ones should we use? So ours is based more at saying if you're a grassroots thing, like a local authority or a startup company, and you're wanting to share data, here's some suggestions. I'm going to go on a bit here. So the thing I put in at a worldwide level is you've got the UN IGIF, and the geospatial bodies have created a sort of capability roadmap.
Yeah.
So a framework you can use if you're wanting to develop with the IGIF that says if just at this level, here are the
Yeah, the tier 1 to tier 4 kind
tier
of
2,
maturity.
tier 3 we
Yeah.
put it. So that's a good resource that many countries can use.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's a longer answer.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Then this is to Dr. Acharya. Dr. Acharya, can you brief from the your own experience in India? How did India approach the work on standards, and what was the roadmap then, and what is the status now and way forward?
Thank you, Harsha. Good evening to all of you. In fact, this is really a big opportunity from the BIS. In this platform, we are sharing the standards journey, in the implementation of NSDI. Now, of course, NSDI is taking into the IGIF, where standard is a recognized component. Even before the IGIF, standard was highlighted as one of the 4 components. Usually, we talked about that metadata standards, network, but collaboration and things like that. Thus, standards were there before. When NSDI journey started in 2006 formally, though it began in 2002 workshop. But the challenge was which standard to begin with, we should implement. There were several organizations participating in NSDI initiatives, Saruf India, ISRO, NRSC, and Central Water Commission. There are different thematic organizations. Thus, where do we begin with? In fact, their basic job was to share maps, not data, though it was data infrastructure. Thus, how do we start WMS surveys? Because OGC was directly associated at that time. DST became a member in OGC, and we tried to understand how to implement WMS. Of course, WMS was there in different software packages, but in order to understand the intricacies, and because after WMS we were to move to WFS, which is service. Thus, what should be our strategy? Thus, map service specification of OGC at that time, I think subsequently it became ISO 19128. That was used by IIT Kharagpur to first demonstrate to different organizations what's that standard and how to prepare the map service, which were having 3 components. I think get map, get feature info like that, get map info like that. Thus, those were written and presented to different organizations. Then came feature service, and feature service required re-engineering of data in order to conform to the standards. Particularly, we came across the ISO 19103 later, which is conceptual schema language. The schema has to be defined. Thus, in this way, WMS and WFS were the priorities, as Peter also mentioned. Thus, different organizations started implementing WMS, WFS. Thus, there were many map URLs and some feature services, service URLs got available. Then, if so many services are there, where do we improve findability? How do we find such services. Thus, the focus was on implementing the data registry. And then there was catalog service at that time, but subsequently it got deprecated. But catalog service was used in a vendor package that was deployed to create the registers. This definition register, feature definition register, then schema register, the code list register, the feature catalog register. In this way, and different registers were created as a part of data registry, at least as an experiment. And the important standard that was used from ISO is ISO 19135. That was procedures to register geographical objects. Thus, how do the organizations upload the services, their schema, their definitions, as you saw in the content standard today. In fact, the domains, soils, geology, forest, all those are now standardizing those schema or content. Thus, where do we store those so that there is reference to the common definitions, terms, vocabularies for ensuring interoperability. Thus, NDR came into being. Thus, NDR basically again was built upon the WMS and WFS services of different organizations. The state special data infrastructures. Today, it was referred to by JSLR from the Department of Land Resources. He gave a reference to this the land records data. In fact, the state special data infrastructures were getting developed, and some of the, I think about 15 to 16 state governments have implemented the WMS and WFS services to share their data, because state governments shared their data. Thus, in this way, the policy of 2022 formalized establishment of the National Geospatial Data Registry, the NGDR, which would now take shape. And Dr. Datta also gave a reference to the UGI, similar to UPI, Unified Payment Interface, where we share transactions and money. Similarly, we should be able to share data, geospatial data. Thus, it is Unified Geospatial Interface, which he referred to, is an important component, which would be again using the APIs, geo APIs to share geospatial information for different purposes. Thus, this is the journey up to now. Then, where do we move ahead? In fact, those are to be based on certain challenges. We have reached this stage, but there are certain challenges. I think that would be a subsequent discussion, or should we bring it?
Yeah, that's a thank you. Subsequent
But this is the journey, and we are very much in the right context with the change in policy, change in market, and other drivers. We are set to adopt newer standards, and then in that context, the interface of NSDI with ISO, OGC, and FIG going to help in a very big way.
Thank you, Dr. Acharya. I have a few questions to Sumit from the same context. Sumit, you have been personally involved in this standards journey for so long now through GIS Hub. You're also working a lot in the standards ecosystem. Can you tell to the community here, what is the role of GIS Hub in the standards development?
So thank you, Harsha, and thank you, BIS, thank you, ISO. I just want to take a step back and take the cue from Acharya-ji that India is a very large country, and we have tremendous challenges. If I were to take the land records example, what does a land record standard mean for small landholder farmer or landless farmer, and what is the use of that standard? So there are tremendous challenges, and I think there's a need for solutions. I mean, when we speak of Inspire in Europe, every state in India is almost the size of a country. So while that is a challenge, and I also see a challenge that the capacity to even understand the standards or the technology that go into the standards is limited. But I see a tremendous potential in India, especially because we have an immense young human resource base that is eager for such challenges, and hence the capacity building, and also the ability to learn these technologies through project-based learning. So GIC Hub is kind of based on the whole idea that we can learn these things by solving some of them. And that's the role of GIC Hub, I think. More importantly, we don't do this alone. GIC Hub is a hub. We do it with our partners. We are a consortium of academic partners. We are a consortium of industry coming together and international partners, OGC. So we believe that we can tackle these questions collectively. And we have started doing a little bit, and hopefully we'll take it forward from there. Thank you.
Yeah, well, one more question is, what are your current priorities and activities from the hub on standards?
Right. So I was going to quote from the vision or values statement of IIT Bombay that we want to be the leaders in innovation around the world, creating new technology and standard. And if you apply that to geospatial standard, that's pretty much what we want to do. But more importantly, I think what we have to do is think out of the box. We have different domain areas. This is a transdisciplinary subject. And the biggest challenge that I see or we see together is how do we bring everybody together to the same table? So I think these are going to be a lot of iterative experiments, I would say, but also learning experiences and in directed manner. So that's what I think our role will be. We are working on ARD. We are working on the schema standardization. We are working. So those are the places that we will be working in.
Yeah,
next.
thank you. Thank you very much, Sumit. We'll now move to Mitika from Oracle. So Mitika, can you help us understand how spatial products from Oracle are benefiting the customers in India? Because not many people generally know that Oracle has spatial offerings, and how are you enabling your customers in India through your offerings?
Sure. Thank you, BIS, and thank you, Harsha. So, if most of the people are not aware of how Oracle is working towards the geospatial, but Oracle is following the comprehensive approach, and OGC and the geospatial technologies are playing a major role in developing the geospatial products of the Oracle. So from last 25 years, Oracle is supporting the geospatial, and now it is part of the Oracle Spatial and Graph, which is Oracle database component. And this comes as a part of the database. So same database, you can use it for the spatial as well as the non-spatial. So when generally we talk about the how we are helping customers, so interoperability is the one of the major challenge which we face in the GIS industry. So because there's a lots of GIS tools and technologies, and it is a diverse technology, and a lot of players are in the market. And when we talk about the diverse technology, Oracle offers an interoperability platform where you can integrate with a lot of tools and technology. And itself, it offers a platform where developers can easily develop the applications related to geospatial. It provides open APIs, which can be easily integrated with the spatial and the non-spatial data. And I myself also found it very useful because I was associated with earlier history, but I found it like how you easily can integrate the different solutions together using the Oracle technology. So it provides a lot of inbuilt low-code applications also, where you can easily develop the solutions also on top of. And being a spatial part, we are also working with OGC as a member and supporting all the new standards developments and supporting majorly of these standards like WMS, WFS, and Geospark Quill is also one of the standard, which is like we are working as a part of community there in the global also. So these are the some of the way how we are supporting customers in India.
I think you've recently also worked with the Department of Science and Technology in one of the projects.
Yes.
Can you explain a little bit about how it went?
Yeah, so we are working with lot of public sector customers. So one of these GST and NSGI is also one of our
Yes.
customers. So where we are helping them is creating the standardizations and standard formats of the data, where it can be easily I can say in our standards, where it can be easily integrated with different tools and technologies. And our specific standards has been set, like sir was talking about the how WMS has been then WFS, CSW. So our middleware technology supports all these OGC compliant formats, which is like if any of the customer would like to choose any of the geospatial technology, but the base is the RDBMS, where you are storing most of the data. And previous lot of conversation I've attended where people talk about the open data and geospatial data policies there, where data is available as free, but where you are putting that data, and it needs to be an enterprise environment, and it should be scalable, because currently we are talking about the 2D, and then there'll be 3D data, lot of indexing, a lot of security and blockchain enabled exercises needs to be done in a future course of technology. So these are all part of the database technology and Oracle solution of products. So we offer range of products which is helping customers in multiple areas.
Sure. Thank you, Mithika. And we'll now
Thank you.
go to Jayanta. Jayanta, as a startup, how has been your product journey been like, and where are you currently standing with your product stack?
Okay, thank you, Harsha. It will be a lie if I say, it was a piece of cake kind of a thing. So it was a tough job getting started. It is the first time we are, both of us were new to a startup industry. And when we went there, we both are from geospatial background. So that was a plus point from what we have. But we have another component, which is the AI component, which comes into it. So that's where, so my partner, Kiran, he also headed the data science and imagery division when we was in Esri. And that helped us. And then we got a data scientist, along with us to work on it. And that's where, we started getting some ideas. We are seeing the different solutions that are there available across the world, and especially in India, and trying to identify what are the different gaps, what are the different opportunities. We always felt that, today, the customers, especially the government and industry, they don't look for, out of the box kind of solutions. They are looking for proper solutions that are made for those industries. So what we thought of, we created a framework on our technology, and then from there we are going for we call it as a last mile customization. So as far as, whichever the customer is, if it's, say, for example, land records, we'll develop something, relevant to land records, the solutions that they know, the terminologies that they are aware of, and configure it in such a way so that, it will be very easy to use. Okay. And if I talk about standards is something, which came very late in my mind, although we are aware of the OGC standards and all. But say, for example, the ISO standards, which are there for geospatial. So I wasn't aware until and unless we started one of the projects that we did for a special data infrastructure, NSDIs, for one of the states. And that's where we came to know, okay, there are different metadata standards, there are different types of models that can be built specific to different domains. And we then try to find out, okay, where are we lagging? How can we, cope up with that? How can we learn from there? And good that, from there we are also building our own, databases, making those structures, database structures and schema, everything that is, compliant to the different OGC standards or ISO standards that are available and implemented throughout.
Sure. And because you're talking about an AI product, right? How different is your AI product from the products available in the market, and how do your customers benefit actually from your product?
Okay, so I'll not call it as a product as of now, because our product is currently at the MVP stage. Okay, and what sets it apart is we have implemented a couple of like you can say USPs in that. One is it's a first of its kind, which is a voice enabled mapping system. So normally we have seen all conventional, areas where we use mouse, keyboards, work on it and all. But a lot of times, maybe in military or different decision-making organizations, the decision makers won't have that time to do all those mapping, or won't have that, advantages or knowledge of how to do those things. So in that case, what we have done is you just understand the different commands that are available, and just give those commands to the system so that it will do the activity, like, starting from adding your data to do queries, to do different analytics. Say, for example, if you want to you have some COVID data available with you, you want to create some heat maps out of it, you create heat maps, doing some clustering. We have also integrated a few basic AI modules into it, like automatic feature extraction, water body extraction, LULC extraction, built-up area extraction. So all those things into it, and they are all, you can give a single command through voice, and it can do those activities.
Sure. I think it's a very unique product that, or rather MVP you have in the market at this point in time. Congratulations for that. We would now go to the second topic. The topic of discussion is on semantic and technical interoperability. I'd come back to Peter and ask him, what are your suggestions for a country like India with numerous departments, like where we have started discussions, like working on geospatial needs? How should they prioritize the work on standards, especially semantic and technical interoperability?
So from my experience, I think that the semantic interoperability is the harder problem. The technical interoperability is kind of sorted out already, but the semantic stuff varies obviously from domain to domain, so, and from country to country, certainly. And interestingly, just this morning, I was approached by somebody that was here, I don't think he is now, who's involved with the ISO Smart project semantic components, so where they're looking at how can ISO better support semantic technologies in the way we publish, and OGC's got a lot of activity in that space. But that's kind of a different level of semantics. That's getting agreement on what a polygon is or what a line is, which we've kind of broadly done. It's just making that available in more modern ways. What you normally need, and here it's being done through the national content models, you agree then, I don't know what you choose to call them, but you agree when a road is a road and when it's a track. We have discussions in the UK because track means different things in different communities. So a track of a boat across the sea is different from the track that you might drive a four-wheel drive vehicle on. It's the same kind of thing, but not exactly the same thing. And that's different from the track that you gain by taking a GPS unit with you as you walk around, or your phone. That leaves a track where you were. And all that's the same word being used for subtly different concepts. And that's actually something which is relatively hard for people to grasp necessarily. We've been discussing that down in the basement. Today is where have we got concepts that are nearly the same but not quite, and how do we make that more clear to people? So then, if you're moving then to a world of artificial intelligence, we've got to make sure we capture that knowledge in such a way that the computer can use that knowledge properly. So when you first run across data before the data scientists have had a good tidy of it, you often find you get totally bizarre results. We ran across all our river data in the UK, trying to find the extent of a river called the River Avon, covers the whole country. No, it doesn't. It's just that there are 5 River Avons. So sometimes you make a stab at something and it doesn't quite work. That was a naming problem rather than a semantic problem. So that's issues you need to get the right experts in the room, as it were, to decide. But actually data is moving too fast for that. So how can we get to a point when we can trust machines to make decisions on the data we're creating? So that opens this whole analysis ready data space that at the moment is concentrating on Earth observation data, but I think we'll need to look at other things too. Once you've got your semantics though, what do you do with them? Because they're going to change. So it actually comes back to the even harder part of getting the governance right. So if you manage to get your 25 departments in one state to agree what they're going to call a land parcel, how do you get them to agree when that definition is going to change over the next 10 years, or to shadow the legislative changes that resulted in changing? So there's been a lot of initiatives in IT which have worked really well for a short time, and then fall apart because they don't have that ability to react to change. So I'd say, alongside getting the experts in the room to sort out the snapshot of what the semantics mean now, you need to get their bosses in the room as well to work out what the governance of that's going to be, so it stands a chance to endure into years into the future. Because although the IT and technology will change, the data changes more slowly, and the real world in many ways changes more slowly than that. Nearly 50, but we have, in my employer on survey, we have about, I get my numbers wrong, I think it's 500 million data objects, features representing bits of geography in the UK, and we change them at enormous speed. It's like 10,000 a day change. But actually 500 million is a very big number. So if you change 10,000 a day for a decade, that means like 98% of them haven't changed. And so you've got to work out, how do you manage the changes of semantics when the data hasn't changed? So we might, what's out there hasn't changed, but we've decided to call that thing a road rather than a track because somebody passed an act of parliament or something. So how do you reclassify? And both the big software companies and the small ones are both good at that in their different ways. Oracle's got a lot of tools to help with that. And the startups tend to have the agility and the ability to cope with that using their brains directly on the data, let's say.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Again, but I'd say go with
Yeah.
governance and experts.
Sure, yeah. But thank you for covering the commercial aspect as well. Dr. Acharya, like what are the next steps? Because we have looked at the history and the current status. What are the next steps in the standards journey for India from the perspective of semantic and technical interoperability, especially in alignment with the National Geospatial Policy?
So thanks, Harsha. In fact, now I am a part of BIS certainly, but not mandated to formally speak about the future.
Yeah.
Because my colleague Dr. Gopi Krishna is there.
Yeah.
Who is a part of the system. He would continue to dwell upon this, but from the past experience and the kind of information we gather from the deliberations of ISO and OGC, we feel that a lot of standards are coming up. Like, well, let me not name one or two, but there are several standards are coming up, which could be immediately used to develop test beds using Indian data. While saying so, I would like to also give reference to the geospatial policy, which very clearly says that if there is a standard already existing, there is no further standard development necessary. Thus, whatever standards are there with ISO or OGC, those would be put to develop the test beds. And here I would like to bring out the support that is provided by the JICE hub through these spokes, because it is a hub spoke model which Dr. Sumit Sen referred to. They would be developing or are helping DST develop, helping NSTI develop these semantic interoperability tools using the standards from ISO, OGC and other sources for ensuring semantic interoperability. Thus, I do not like to give any specific reply to this, but through the policy, you might have seen that there is a set of activities or there is a set of goals given for next several years.
Yeah.
Thus, in that context, a lot of focus would be given to implement IGIF of UNGGIM. And as a part of that, semantic interoperability has to be ensured so that there is automatic exchange of data based on meanings and concepts. Thank you.
Sure, sir. Thank you. Dr. Sumit, what are your views on the prioritization of semantic and technical interoperability in India?
So I'm taking cue as a person who has worked in Ordnance Survey and in the NSDI on geospatial ontologies and semantic interoperability. For almost more than 2 decades now, I have now come to the conclusion that prioritization, at least in India, we cannot have a very clear demarcation of semantics versus technical versus. The reason is there are some which are very high priority, India being a multilingual place, some of the semantic components are very high priority as well. There are some established ways to deal with them, but those systems have to be in place. We are not doing a great job right now as you speak, but hopefully we will. But I think I agree that semantics generally is a hard nut to crack. So as long as we can solve the immediate problems and the high value problems, let's say, put it that way. And then I think what we have to also do, so there's where we borrow some of the tools and practices. But what we also have to do is a lot of disruptive innovation when it comes to standardization, because the data, as Peter said, is changing so rapidly. The moment we have devised a technique for data sharing, there are new data sets that have come up. And what are we going to do with it? For example, ARD1, but that's basically coming from multispectral Earth observation data. But we have large, very large, over the time collected LiDAR data sets that we are sitting with, which is not getting analyzed. Road, so for example, we have the HD road data for driverless cars. There's data temporally continuous. Nobody's able to analyze. So there are lots of problems that needs to be, and it depends on the value, the high value problems that need to be solved. If they are semantic, so be it. They will be hard. Some ways to tackle them will come up.
What do you think are those high value tickets?
For India, definitely the regional and linguistic differences that we have in systems. Those are the very high value, because disasters, for example, interoperability, absolutely. I mean, just imagine, and I hope, and I will pray that nothing similar happens, but if it's a regional disaster, how are we going to even quantify and understand what's going on? Because right now our systems, land systems, water systems, are so divided, fragmented. So we would have to work on those as a high priority, I think.
Sure, thank you. Though I think that's also a very good opportunity for organizations like OGC to collaborate with government, because for you in the room, OGC works a lot, like how Scott said in the morning, on innovation programs, and climate change and disasters is one of the large focus topics for us, where we were working with national governments in the US and Europe and elsewhere. I think for the governments here, the national organizations here, I think there's a huge opportunity for us all to collaborate through innovation programs as well. And now I go to Mithika and Jayanta. And Mithika, can you tell us how you enable technical interoperability in your products? Yeah.
Sure. So Oracle approach, a very comprehensive approach. When we talk about Oracle, it follows a simple feature sequence, which is very easy and accessible. And also it follows all the OGC compliant things. Second is it offers open APIs and protocols. So when you enable Oracle database or Oracle suite of products, it accessibility of the data is easy. You can integrate with any of the systems, and also both ways. Third is Oracle also offers the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure solution, which is easily you can integrate on-premise as well as the cloud-based solution. So you can, let's say, some of the hybrid approach, if you would like to follow in situations where people would like to put their data on the cloud and as well as on-prem. So that is also one of the point. Another point is Oracle database is the major platform, which now with the recent version, spatial is the major component, which is bundled in the database. So, and along with a lot of open APIs like GeoJSON, REST-based access, where you can easily put your data and access your data via REST API. And in the recent 23C version, we are also enabling the GeoRaster API as a REST API. So you can also share your raster data, like raster data as a REST API also. So this is all part of the database bundled in the system. Also, in terms of all the let's say compliances and the standards, Oracle also major policy is the security. So Oracle goes for a lot of in terms of security testing. There, each product is go with all the upgrade patches and all the testing of the security. So a lot of technology products and other solutions which are there in the market, if they would like to go for the testing on the Oracle software, so we are open and we do testing of integration with their software. So that is also one of the interoperability access where other technologies can easily integrate and exchange their data. So these are the some of the ways Oracle is helping the customer to easily integrate the system.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mitika. Jayanta, can you tell us about, like you gave the example already in one of the SDI projects that you've tried to do. Can you little bit delve deep into what kind of interoperability things that you've came across?
Okay. It's very important when we are working with different, so many different types of agencies and customers. Talking to each other, different data will be available at different formats. The structure would be different. So there was, a need for having a standard format for that. So in SDA project, we have something called as the cataloging. Okay, so for cataloging, we received a specified, ISO format 19115 and 19139 to be followed for providing all the metadata, adding all the metadata information to the data sets that are available there in geospatial data sets. And we got around, I think, 130 odd parameters in that, which were issued. And in the platform which we created for them, we have, and I think it's one of the mandates as well. So the admins or the data owners will be able to add the different required metadata information into it. Okay, some of them are mandatory, like, since we are working on geospatial data, so the extent you have to put, it's mandatory. Okay, similarly, there will be mandatory and there will be some optional information that can be. But when it is going to all the departments, we are having a standard format in which we are receiving the data from the different departments. And that's how it's helping them out. And apart from that, we have in the tools also, we have different types of, import and export tools as well. So it's also essential for us to read all the, at least the open data formats and the OGC compliant formats that are available. So in there we support, import and export of different types of geospatial data formats in it as well.
Sure, thank you. Mitika, are you seeing any special needs arising in India in the projects that where Oracle products get implemented, especially on interoperability? Any are you seeing any mandated needs saying that, yeah, we need these kind of technical interoperability to be certified, and then because you already have an OGC certification in the products, that you see an advantage of go to market? So do you see that thing in the commercial stages of the projects, etc.?
Oracle is working towards making their data more accessible, and it is like earlier we used to work on the RDBMS, but now we call it as a converged database. So converged is having a lot of capabilities, like in the same database you can store RDBMS tables. Also AI machine learning based instances are also there. You can store the IoT data, you can store the spatial, all are part of the converged. And now the specific JSON based features also there. So now we are talking about the converged thing. And I think we have found that because in the customers there, sometimes they are using the separate databases for separate workflows, which we found it. And then we have had a customers where they have integrated all their components with the Oracle database. So instead of keeping multiple databases, like one for the let's say for transactional workflows, one for IoT-based integration, one for only storing the non-spatial data, and then for spatial data. So it is difficult, or it is a time-consuming or maintenance also to integrate all the things. So we found we're going to converged data design, and this will help storing the all kinds of interfaces in a single enterprise system. And it is easy to scale also, because when we start any of the project, it starts with the slow, but it slowly increases, which requires a lot of scalability, and which is the core capability of the Oracle database. As you know, in the financial sector, we are the present in all of the banks, 99% banks, in the terms of security and transactional UPI interfaces and all. So Oracle is doing well there, and a lot of standards have been followed. So same, we want it should be some standards where data should be easily accessible. You should not restrict to any of the specific geospatial technology. It should be easily integratable with all of the technology, and easily shareable data can be accessed through the APIs and the through different mediums also. So that is we are telling our customers also.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll now move to the third topic of the discussion, which is on testing and compliance. I'd pose this question to Dr. Acharya. What has been the journey of India with respect to testing and compliance of standards in India?
Well, as of now, there is no mechanism in NSDI for testing whether a particular data set is conforming to a standard or not. But certainly that's a priority, and it is in the process of getting developed. Certain activities were carried out as R&D projects for testing data sets. I mean, those data sets getting collected through volunteer GIS or other similar means. There is a need for testing its quality. Thus, there are certain ways to do it. Some projects have been supported by DST in the recent past, but nothing substantial has been available as an operational scale deployment. But certainly that is an issue that is being looked into in NSDI context. But about technology interoperability and technology testing conformance, I think you are aware. I mean, OGC is having the OGC validator module, and there are other means to do it. Those are to be relied upon. But those are all technology testing. But about the data testing, I think I'm not really aware, and we're still working towards that.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Sumit, what are your views? Especially in the morning, we've heard that aspect of QFAIR, right? Now, we also have the quality aspect to be tested. What's your views on this aspect?
Yeah, QFAIR, but I will just also continue from the thing that Acharya was mentioning, and I think it's the same thing across countries. In UK, increasingly in many countries in the Middle East, the digital twin countries where you have Korea and Singapore. The challenge is, how do we know if the data that has been supplied is compliant? One, what is it compliant to, and will it work? So I think what we have to increasingly move towards is the third question, which is when somebody provides data, the compliance should be on the level. We start from the number 3, which is, does it work? And that built into the contract enables self. That's the principle by which OGC lives by. Is OGC doesn't do compliance testing in the sense that these are OGC certified company, or this is OGC certified data. It's you run it by this site engine, and if you run it goes, so self-compliance kind of. So I think that's the paradigm that you're looking at. But across the world, I know I have received lots of requests. How can we make a policy? How can we make a procedure, PRC guide, where we can say this is compliant? I think there's no one solution for that. Some of that can be mandated. Some of it will have to be in a part of the contract in terms of whether it works with the other systems, other data sets that you have.
Sure, sure. Thank you very much. This question is again Mithika and Jayanta, like what specific standards are your products certified for? And what's your roadmap on geospatial standards?
Okay, so from Oracle, we are actively participating member with the OGC. So our global product managers, Jayant and product leads is actively working with the OGC as a chairing member also. They are working on the standards like we are already following the OGC standards like simple SQL and WMS, WFS, WMTS, all these standards, and GeoSparkle also. And in the roadmap, which are relevant to us, we are working with the OGC and actively participating as a community member. We are also working as a Geo Parakit also for one of the standard where he'll be working with you to be part of the as a Oracle standard. So these are the standards which we follow.
Sure. Jayanta, I know it's not a right question because you're still at an MVP stage, but what are your views?
So although we are not, if you ask me, thappa kidhar hai, we don't have that thappa as of now, but we are complying with, all the OGC standards requirements and all that are there. And very soon, I think when we are currently, testing with multiple users, around 2000 users and all have been testing our product. And maybe in a few months of time, we'll be able to, take it for some external audits and OGC compliance and everything. We can test it out, and there we can check that up. And like I'm from a startup, and I feel what we need first and foremost is a bit of an awareness. That's what I do not see a lot, especially in the geospatial industry. I cannot comment on other sectors. So if we have any conferences and all, I think we should see more of ISO and compliance related, data standard related sessions, and don't make it parallel sessions with 5 more sessions because when you talk about standards, and I'm talking about a normal human mentality kind of a thing, it will come at the end for me. First of all, I have to see what are the jazzy features that are coming in different applications and all. But standards, I feel, are equally important, and it actually tells the my customers and all, okay, he's complying with this kind of standards. So your data or your applications which will be there, they are not only standardized, but they are also safe and secured, and quality is maintained on that.
Sure. Thank you.
Rate your pattern.
No, the pattern is done actually. Yeah.
So I'm just going to pose to Jen. GIC Hub organizes 3-day workshops, and we have time and again said, what is a workshop that you want? Do you want to have a workshop? So is the industry, the startup industry, startups, are they ready to come up and say, I want this? No conference will let you have a discussion without a parallel session. I have not seen any, but that's what I'm going to suggest.
So good to get in touch with Sumit then.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Any questions we have from the audience? Please feel free to do so. We have time for questions. Anybody? Yeah, sure, Dr. Datta. Yeah, can you pass a mic to Dr. Datta, please? There is a mic here. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I think, like the whole day, as we are discussing about the focus on like the standard in action, like we have heard about from the panel about that the PANs and the challenges, what they have gone through. Let us be a little positive way, like, how from here, out of this negative experience, what are your positive suggestions that as a LIPD 22, as the mirror committee of TC 211, the actions we should take, like some of them, like during this last 2 days of TC 211, we have heard about, like, people are talking about that all the standard documents are too voluminous to communicate to the users. So what's the way that we should bring it out, a communication product out of that, or the similar way? I think probably we want not only your pain points, but the the directions and the roadmaps ahead of the learning of your pain points.
So if
Yeah, please go ahead, Sumit.
mind, this is
Yeah, it's
okay.
okay.
So I don't know whether I came across too negative, but I do believe in the tremendous potential of I will say Indian youth to start with. There's a huge potential right now in the Indian youth that can take up these voluminous standards and implement them. It's only a direction that I wouldn't say corralling, but the right direction. And this is not just for India. These engineers that we can build the capacity with, they will build for the world. So I think that's the biggest optimistic, or let's say positive, that I see once we have this movement going. So I think that's the biggest, if we invest in the capacity building, I think we are in for a huge revolution.
Yeah, sure. I want to add one point, the specific point that Dr. Datta said and gave it to the panel. So Dr. Datta was saying these huge standard documents which cannot be read by anybody, how do you make them consumable, right? So that people can understand the value and take those standards. So probably Peter can.
Yes, I think it's a very real problem, which we've been aware of for a little while, and we're trying to find various ways to approach. And I think one angle on that is that the different standards have different audiences. So we have some standards that are aimed at developers, so API standards, for example, or even the standards for data modeling, slightly different kind of developer. But and on the API ones, so OGC has led us in two things. One is to make the standards more developer friendly in the sense of breaking them up into smaller parts and making it easier that, okay, if you just want to implement some things, just read these bits, not the whole thing. So we from Modern Survey sent 2 developers across to the States who tried implementing a WFS. They went across to some of the earlier OGC API features, code sprints. I'll come back to that. And they came back saying, well, we wrote one in a weekend. This is great. We like this standard. There's a big difference between writing one in a weekend in a code sprint and making a national scale API that's going to manage to do your whole country. But they've done that over the following couple of years. So one is that of making the standards themselves simpler, but simpler for whom? And this is the developer audience standards. And the other one is code sprints. So the opportunity for developers to get their hands dirty in the company of the experts who wrote the standards and are in listening mode, so the developers can criticize the standard and say, well, that wasn't very clear, make it clearer. So that works well in the developer-oriented standards. In some of the more sort of core, ones that lie below the surface a bit, where the target audience is perhaps actually other standards developers, then the challenge is a bit different. What we've been doing is getting people to put out short explainer videos, which at least give you a start to get into it. So that by short, that might mean it's a 7 or 10 minute video, after which you can think, okay, now I understand why I should at least try to read the standard, because that could be a problem. So that's the second part. The third part, I'd say, is we do have a wiki, which has a page for each standard where we can put in explainer content, use cases, which are also useful to people. So this organization used this standard to achieve this. So the wiki needs a wiki manager. If you've got somebody keen on maintaining wiki content, we lost the South African lady who used to do it. Her university demanded her time back. But it also needs content. So if you've got good use cases, how we found it easy to use the standard, or how we found it hard, but anything really that you'd allow us to republish so other people could use it. So there's 2 or 3 things. There's developer focused versus more, I don't know, bigger, chunkier standards. And then there's break them down, run code sprints, and publish supplementary material, whether that's videos or use user guides and things.
Sure. Scott, do you also want to take this opportunity to answer this, add value to this question on how OGC is actually helping these developers to adopt these APIs that are being discussed by Peter over here?
I was sitting there thinking, why? Peter's great. He gave a perfect example and did a really good job. But to talk a little bit more about the whole paradigm, there's different types of standards that do different things, as Peter highlighted. A lot of the things that ISO TC 211 does are so fundamental that, quite frankly, the only way to understand what they're going to do is to take that really hard effort and read and learn, because if you need to understand that general feature model, you've got to understand a lot about geodesy, about how we model things in the real world. You don't get a shortcut. It's just going to be hard. But a lot of these other resources, expedited publishing, e-learning activities, ISO's wiki are just tremendously valuable for the community. But I also think it's a matter of events like this, where we can sort of coach other people who have heard about the standards, know they're out there, point them to a handful of resources to get moving, and we can move quite well.
Thank you. Anybody else want to ask any question? Yes, please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Dr. Anirudh Roy. I represent Genesis International here. So I do have a couple of suggestions, and I would like to know one from Peter, how these suggestions are being implemented elsewhere in other parts of the world. So the topic of this panel discussion is roadmap for geospatial standards in action. So having said that, if the standards have already been formulated, what actions that we expect on the ground on various government initiatives, various enterprises, how they are adopting. Keeping that into that mind, I feel it is very important that certain things should be mandated from top-down approach, rather than few knowledgeable person talking to each other and finding a value for it. It's very important that the decision maker, the administrators, they get a value for, they understand the importance of it, and there should be mandated, if there is a value for it, that should be put in the all request for proposal, whereas the large mission critical projects are there, and that should be monitored as well. This is one part. Second part about the technical interoperability and the semantic interoperability, which you have discussed, Harsha. Currently, we all know that there is a lot of cyclone activity which is happening in south of India. In Chennai, we have there a lot of water logging. Now, simple example of semantic interoperability is that in disaster management scenario, one department will take us to the safety zones. Another department will take us to the evacuation sites. Both actually mean the same. But as far as their departmental data sets are there, because it has been modeled that way, the decision makers or the first responders will think that these are two different places, wherever actually they mean it is the same place, because the meanings have not been conveyed properly. So the essence of semantic interoperability lies in the foundation that when we create the data model for a specific administrative zone, in the data model, the same name should be uniformly mentioned. They should be trained, administered, and then should be practiced. So I feel very strongly when we create the standards, there is a huge need for capacity building, outreach program training for all those who matters and for whom this is intended. So my short question now with this background to Peter, how do you see in elsewhere in the world, these standards have been practiced and put into action? Thank you.
Yes, so first I would make a comment about mandating, because that works differently in different countries for a variety of reasons. And a little anecdote comes from when I was engaged with the smart cities communities, and it was an international working group again. They made the comment that in some countries, in China, if the central government mandates that a city will do it like this, the cities will do it like that. You know, there's no sort of, well, you don't get argument for long in China about how to do it, and that's no disrespect to them. It works really well for them. The German delegates in the meeting said the problem is if the federal German government mandates something, all the cities will say why they don't have to do it like that. They'll all claim their independence under some charter from 1730 or something that says I don't have to pay this federal government. So they have to be aware of their own political situation. So in ISO terms, nobody has to do what's in our standards. That has to be up to national or regional government policy. Or so in the UK, there can be a government policy that mandates a standard. That occasionally happens. They mandated a standard for a register of previously developed land. In other words, that every local authority at certain levels, like city, had to publicly say which parcels of land qualified as previously developed and therefore could be redeveloped with less planning permission problems, rather than ploughing up a farmer's field to turn it into a housing estate. So because that was mandated, they towed the line and did it. And that works when it's government agencies obeying the line. It doesn't work getting our government to mandate things for public sector to do. Doesn't work. That's just my country. So it varies from place to place. That was a bit about mandating. What we in ISO and in OGC can provide, and with people like IIT contributing a lot now, hopefully, is material that can be used to satisfy that other part, to build the groundswell of innovative companies and informed customers who demand the standards, and you get the demand from below. So our local authorities used to use basically 2 different GIS software until QGIS was invented, and then that came along as 3 because that was free, so it was cheaper for them. One of the software developer companies implemented GML reading quite smoothly, the other one didn't. And we went as a data publisher to say to them, please implement this so people can read our data. They said, well, until our customers ask us for it, we won't, just because you want us to do it. So we had to go past them to their customers and say, if you're a user of that software, can you get together and lobby them? Because we've got better data than you're getting in your shape files. We want to give it to you. This was some time ago when GML was the right way to do it. I'm not saying it would be now. So that's an example where there has to be a customer or a groundswell from below to insist on a standard being used. Sometimes it's a mandating from above. Your other point was about semantics, and that's, I think, what we were saying earlier, that you need the people to agree what the correct term is going to be, and then you need the governance or the groundswell to get that to actually happen. And it is a real problem when different communities and professional communities are using different terms for what's effectively the same thing, or in certain circumstances it's the same thing. So you might use a school as an evacuation site in disasters, but you wouldn't use it as an evacuation site for any other reason, because the children are there being educated. You can't have everybody else just turning up because they're, it's got to be declared as a proper evacuation before you can reclassify the schools as evacuation sites. So there's a lot of legal and safety concerns sometimes around that. And there are good reasons why different communities have different terms. So I don't think you'll ever get every community to use the same term for the same thing. So that's where actually the technical side is in place. Semantic technologies allow you to say, in these circumstances, this term is equivalent to that term. And then the machine readable stuff can say, okay, someone's declared an emergency, therefore I'll use the same symbol across football grounds and schools, because both of those have been declared to be evacuation sites, as an example. But you won't get people to reclassify or to say in all their data that this football ground doubles as an emergency evacuation site. So I think there's that second level of semantic interoperability for certain circumstances. And again, OGC have run these disaster pilots and so on that have written quite extensive. I mean, an engineering report from OGC is far bigger read than a standard, but in there somewhere is the useful detail of how to do it.
Thank you, Peter, for recommending the OGC engineering reports. We have a question online before we take it to Dr. Gaikwad. Yes, Mr. Sanjay, who is online, who has raised the hand. You can unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and ask your question, please.
Yeah, thank you, Harsha. I am Dr. Sanjay Rajpal. I am from Bhaskarachar Institute for Space Application and Geoinformatics. We are into development and implementation of various geospatial applications for optimization of logistics across the country, as well as area development and many more sectors of the country. So more like a application organization. And I'm really thankful to BIS and ISO for organizing this sessions where we have a lot of good ideas. Coming to my question, are there in any of the countries, especially I'm asking to Peter, whether any of the countries are having accreditation schemes for certification of these standards, or if you have heard, if you have plans for that?
Okay, so I'm aware of what's going on in Europe more than I am in the rest of the world, although I am the chair of an international committee. I think Korea has something as well, but in Europe, I'll go with this. In Europe and Korea, where they've developed content models using our standards, so they have a content model for transport networks and a content model for water networks and so on. They then do have online tools where you can upload a data set and have it validated against that content model. And I know they have that in Europe. I'm reasonably sure they have it in Korea. So that's an example of where people have taken the standards, developed a national or regional standard and developed a testing tool for it. We've already heard earlier about the OGC testing tools, which are there for mostly for products, but you can actually go back to GML. I'm a bit old fashioned with this. You can upload a GML data set to the GML part of the CIT, the test engine, and it'll validate it that it's GML. It won't tell you if it's a land cover data set or a river data set, but the European Commission Inspire ones will, as long as your definition of river network matches their one, of course. So, but the technology is there, and they have made, the European Commission's made a lot of the things they've done there open source. So it should be possible to take that and adjust it to the national data model for a theme if you've got a very similar theme, which I think most of us have now. You don't have water networks in some parts of the Middle East, but it's not that the water network is different essentially from one place to another. So is that helpful, Mr. Rajpal?
Yeah, this is quite helpful. So basically, like those testing tools or test beds should be integrated into the applications which we are using for managing the data sets, because they are keep changing, as Dr. Sumit Sen was saying. It's a challenge, like we always have a changing things every time the data is added.
Yeah, so there's always a challenge doing that, because what do you then do with the result? So if you're processing incoming data on a reasonably slow basis, so in the Ordnance Survey, we might be doing this, we commission someone, probably in India actually, to make us a road network data set out of this imagery we sent you. They send something back, we can automatically test whether it's valid or not. There's a weakness in that, of course. It doesn't tell you whether any of the roads in the data match the roads in the real world. That's a completely different exercise. Whether that's good quality is different from does it conform to a specification, because no machine, well, okay, you'd have to build a whole extra set of things to get a machine which could validate whether the data is in the same, is positionally accurate as well, because what do they compare it against? So that's, we do have standards for that. So in particular, we've got a ISO 19158 is the quality control of data supply. But that doesn't tell you how to build a test engine, but it does tell you how to relate to your data suppliers in such a way that they're probably going to be supplying you quality data. In fact, there's been Indian organizations who've contributed quite a lot of experience as to being people delivering to that standard. So,
Yeah, Dr. Gaikwad, your question, please.
Yeah, my question is,
it's probably on just.
it's on. Yeah. So basically, we have different types of data sets, right from as we have seen that RDBMS is there. There are different types of spatial, non-spatial contents are there. So what happened, these data sets are available, and it has been catered through some of the tools or some of the COTS packages. So basically, these packages are readily available with some of the standards. So what not audible?
No, I'm talking to Ashish.
Yeah. So basically, these are the standards which are nationwide is available. like BIS is there or any kind of standards we are publishing. So whether this package or any tools which we different types of thoughts are there are readily available, or they are working in this way, like we normally address the international standards as such, but national standards is also very important in that particular area where we can disseminate these services through that. So this tool development is being taken care by the industries, or any efforts has been taken in that directions?
Yeah, I think this question pertains to Indian context. I
Yeah.
think from that LITD 22, we are now seeing that LiDAR specification where a software package is also being proposed to test that as a standard. If some of you might have been in the LITD meetings that are there. So yeah, for certain new standards that are being developed in India, for example, for LiDAR data quality, they now want to create a test package. And Dr. Anirudh Roy, who is sitting behind you, is actually part of that committee. Dr. Anirudh Roy, you want to comment on that, how you are taking that approach?
So Harsha, this is the proposal that.
Yeah, there's a proposal, yeah.
And the committee is actually looking into it. The
Yeah.
primary aspect is that, as you are aware, whatever the best practices, the proven ones, LITD 22, just like that, they adopt that. So whether it is ISO standards are there is no further questions. Wherever we felt there is a need for modifications which is required based on the ground realities and the feedbacks which are coming from the customer, committee is being formed and we try to create in our own way. One of the questions that came, that should we use these packages in the COTS product or any other things, or there should be some product that should be created which makes specific to the standards that we are going to meet. As of today, to the best of my knowledge, this proposal is under consideration, and I think we feel it should be done that way, but it is yet to be announced.
Yeah, maybe I will pose this question to Ashish. Ashish, because there are discussions on compliance aspects from the geospatial side in India. What are your thoughts at this point in time related to compliance of standards in India? Do you want to comment on that?
So we are receiving various kinds of feedbacks from the industry and from the state governments. So right now, what we are seeing is that a particular set of industry has to develop different solutions for different state governments and in a different format. So yes, there is a need to have standards being followed on the ground also by various stakeholders. Now, how to get those standards followed is a different mechanism. So that's why the compliance and all those things comes into picture. So is the market ready for any compliant mandate from the government side? That we need to check whether is it the appropriate time or not. But our current practice is we make standard popularized. We inform various state governments, look, these are the standards available. You can give these standards referred in your RFPs so that you need not to develop your own RFPs. And by the end, so currently we are in the process of educating the state governments and the various industries that please refer these standards in your programs so that you need not to reinvent the wheel again and again. The regulation parts that we may discuss at a later point of time when we think the market is mature enough.
Sure, thank you. Any more questions if we have from the audience? If not, I would take this opportunity to once again thank Peter, Dr. Acharya, Sumit, Mithika and Jayanta for their contributions, and thank you BIS for this wonderful opportunity for all of us in this concluding session. I would now pass on the mic to the BIS team. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Harsha sir, for conducting the session so flawlessly. I'll request our head, Ms. Reena Garg, to please come forward and please give mementos to our panel members. Mr. Harshvardhan Madiraju. Mr. Jayant Podar. Mr. P.S. Acharya. Ms. Smritika Garg. And Mr. Sumit Sen. I would also request Ashish sir to please come on the dais and accept the memento as the member secretary of LITD 22 and for all of his efforts in this meeting, in organizing this meeting. Please give a big round of applause.
Must acknowledge a lot of hard work done by Ashish and a big round of applause for him.
Madam, you want to take photo with the families? Ashish, please join. Yeah, please. Can have a group photo also. Yeah, we'll have a group photo with everybody.
Give a lot of time for dinner. We can have a group photo.
Yeah. Can we all have a group photo?
Yeah, so all the delegates, please come forward for a group photograph. All the participants in the room, please come forward for a group photograph. While we are collecting, I'll quickly take this opportunity to thank all the speakers today, all the participants, and all the virtual participants who are present. Dinner bowl. Dinner. Some people have spoken. Use the standard for standard.